I want to, I'm going to share screen my board here, and it's going to go, no, not that. I actually want to go to Illustrator, and I'm going to show you guys a couple things in Illustrator. First thing I want to show you guys how to do before we, this is going to take a second. Okay, so here we've got our, so here we've got lots of stuff going on. This is generally how my Illustrator artboards look anyways, with stuff all over the place. What I want to show you guys how to do is to make a custom brush in Illustrator. This is, I'm going to show you why this, we're going to make a pattern too. But the first thing I want to do is show you how to make a brush, and then we'll make a pattern. But I'm going to use that brush a little bit to make the pattern. So I'm going to just show you how to do that. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a, I'm going to make this black. Okay, so I'm going to use the pencil tool, right? And I've got a lot of layers going on here. And I'm going to sketch layer, which I can't. That's why I was telling them I couldn't do anything. And am I still in a sketch in the locked layer? I'm in an invisible layer, and I can't draw on a layer that isn't there. All right, so here I'm just going to draw a simple. I think I'm just going to try and draw a little flower here, because I'm going to use that in my pattern. That's not a very good looking flower. I'm going to start over. All right, so actually starting to look like a shamrock, but okay, so here's, it's sort of a flower. I don't know what I got turned on. I got the points. Oh, I know why. I was like, why are my points so big? It's because I got the interface turned up so you guys can see it. I was like, so this is one of those things where like the pencil tools can be really good for you know, I can go back over these shapes and I can make them feel a little bit more flowery. You know, I can fix things when I was drawing. But if you don't start like right near the, I can change that in my settings, but you want to start and end right near the line. Otherwise it thinks you're creating a new line, and you can have wacky results. So here I got, it's sort of a flower. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to create another thing here, and I'm going to just use that. I'm going to knock that out. So there we go. So now this is my attempt at making a flower. So now that I've got this flower, I'm going to make it into a brush, a flower brush, as it were. Okay. So if I go over to brushes, I can create, I've got this selected. I'm going to create a new brush. Okay. Which is, the new thing is always the little plus thing there. And I'm going to create, there's different types of brushes. We can get in those another time, but what I want to do is art brush. This is what you're mostly going to be using. Okay, art brush. So I'm going to just make an art brush. Okay. And let me, it opened up in one of my other screens, as it often does. And here we got our art brush options. Okay. And this is where you kind of decide how you're, and this is the thing that I really, I'm going to go through kind of bit by bit. Okay. So with this art brush, I'm going to just call it flower. I like to name these things so that later, oh, I didn't want to do that. I want to edit it. Okay, so flower and width. Okay, so is the width fixed or is it adjustable? I want it to be fixed, okay, because what I want to do is I want to be able to use this to draw a bunch of flowers, and so I want it to be kind of the same. I don't want it to change. Well, I'll show you what happens. Actually, I do want to. No, I'll just have it fixed. So now the brush scale options. Now this is going to decide how your thing looks. All right. So scale proportionally is what I want. Okay. But I'm going to show you what stretch to fit stroke length looks like. Okay. So because this is going to work right off the the bat, okay? But I'm going to show you what it looks like. This looks like a horror show because I've applied the stroke to it, okay? Now I'm going to use the brush tool to draw a line using my brush. Let's make sure I got my brush selected. There you go. And I can go like this, okay? So now you can, so I've drawn using this. This is my new brush. This is what it's going to make. But that doesn't look very good because see, if I make a really long thing, it's all stretched and stuff like that. And I don't really want it stretched, but that's what it would do. That if I have this big long line, it just kind of stretches it between the different lines, okay? And that's not what I want. So I'm just going to double click on that so I can edit it. And if I do scale proportionally, I'm going to apply it to strokes. I'm going to undo that. I don't want this anymore. I want to put the stroke on there again. I guess I have this selected. I don't remember having this selected. But I'm just going to move this off the artboard so I can't, I stop selecting it. Okay. All right, so here's my stroke from before, but now it's proportional. So no matter how long my stroke is, it's going to just make it bigger. Okay, it's proportional. It's not long and thin anymore. It just makes it bigger. So if I make it small, I get a small one. If I make it bigger, I get a big one. And you'll see why I want to do it this way for later. All right. I'm going to go back and double click on this because there's some other things I want to show you. So that's what these do. Stretch between guides, that's like scale proportionally, except you can kind of set these guides where it scales to. Okay, so like if I do stretch between guides, and I'll do this, it's going to, this part in the middle is going to stretch, and the ends are going to be, and there's you'll watch this. So like I'm going to do a big long thing, and you can see the ends are sort of normal. Well, this got kind of funky look to it. There's reasons why you'd want to do that, but not for what we want here. We just want a little thing that we can like draw with. So we're going to scale proportionally. Okay, and this is the other thing, like the direction when I draw, which way it's going to be, and you can change that. I'm not really too concerned about this on this one because it doesn't really have a top or a bottom. It's just a little flower. So I'm just going to leave it here. But you could see if it was something that had a clear top or a bottom, it might, with the way you drew it, it might, it would just change the way that you'd like to. There might be a right way to, if it's a tree, maybe you draw the tree by starting at the stump and drawing up, if you want a bunch of trees in your background. And so maybe you would change the direction to be like this, because the natural way to draw a tree might be to start at the stump at the horizon and draw up like that. If you do it from the top down, that might not, you can do it that way, but you definitely would want it left to right, because that would be a strange way to draw it, a tree. You definitely want it up and down. Okay, now this is the part that takes the most instruction, to be honest, colorization, all right? So right now, we've got it set like this, and if I go and I select this and I try and color it, nothing happens, right? It's still black. Even though my color here, it's still black. Well, I don't want that. I mean, maybe I just want to make a brush and it's always going to be black, or it's always going to be whatever, but that's not very, it has a lot of utility. So I'm going to change the colorization method, okay? And the one that you want is going to be, I'm just going to tell you, the one you want is tints and shades, all right? There's this little tips thing here. This is so, you probably never even seen this tips in any other Adobe product before, okay? Because this is so backwards and weird the way the colorization works, and it makes no sense intuitively. They have to put this in. I'm gonna click on it. I'm gonna show you what it does. Now, this makes sense to me because I use it all the time. But I'm gonna tell you that if you look at this and you immediately understand what this shows, then you're some kind of color super genius, okay? Because to me, this is inherently confusing, all right? But what it is that you want, maybe it's not tints and shades, maybe it's just tints. Okay, so you can see this is the original, okay? And this is what it looks like when you have the color. So we saw none, that makes sense, okay? This is our original This is our original illustration, and we do when we do different colors, it's the same because it's not. If we do tints, actually, I think it is tints that I want. If it's tints, then you just get you get the true color where it's black, and then the other values change to be a tint of value-wise. Shades, you just color everything so the black stays black, and the you can see the black stays black, but then the other colors are colored as tints, sort of like the hue. So this mid-tone, which is the true color, becomes the green, and same with purple and stuff. And then with hue shift, it kind of like, you can see that so the green, the yellow becomes this green, and then because this is the you sampled this color, that's what's showing you. You sampled this color, and this is the color that's the hue shift, and then this orange gets moved along the slider bar of hue to the next color. Okay, and that's why you have the key color here. That's what that thing is for. I believe it is tints. I don't know why I put tints and shades. So I'm going to hit that and okay, make sure that this is working. Apply the stroke. So why does this keep? Somehow I keep. Maybe I got to remove the stroke from that. Gotta stop from doing that. I do none. I don't know. Anyway, I can mess around with that. So anyway, here, so now we can actually color it, okay? So you go, I think they actually changed this because it used to be tints was not the real color. Let me make sure about that. Yeah, I think they changed the way it works a little bit. Maybe actually, I'm gonna shift it to, I'm gonna test this out again. And see, I didn't get confused about it. So if I do tints and shades, yeah, tints and shades isn't right. That's not right. Yeah, so it is just tints. It is just tints. So if you want to make it black, so what I did was I made my original black, and that makes more sense. I think the reason why it makes more sense to me is because that's the way the other strokes behave. So if you can see, this is like the strokes that come with it. It just gives you the actual color. So they change. I think it used to be tints and shades, and there used to be a problem with it, with the color not matching exactly. But it seems to be working anyway. So so now I can color the strokes. I can draw my strokes, and then I can color them whatever I want. Like this, I can have different colored. And you can see, like with this, I can make a little floral pattern really easy. That's what we're kind of doing. But I'm not done with showing you guys the this thing yet. Okay, so there's two other things. Okay, the flip, because you can flip like which way it goes, this way or that way. That's not really useful to me. You can see the preview of it if I flip it. Just kind of change things if you want, but you might need that at some point. But the overlap, okay? So I don't know if you've ever like made a brush and it goes, right now I've been using my line to I'm going to change this to stretch between to fit stroke length, and I'm going to draw with this, and I'm going to cross over it. This is a hot mess, but you can see that where it overlaps, it kind of, it makes sense, it overlaps. If I change this to this weird corner thing, now I've got these strange areas where when it overlaps, you've got these empty areas, and that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make sure that it's this one. And I'm going to delete this. There's also a thing, okay, when we'll get to that. Actually, I'll do that another time when I'm doing other brushes. So I'm going to show you guys how to make brushes that are like this. in here too. We can make our own custom brushes. They're like charcoal and things like that. But today I just want to show you, give you like a primer on how to make brushes. It's super easy. If you're making an illustration and you got to do like 1,000 trees or something like that, or you're just making a design and it's gonna have a bunch of flowers, it's really quick to make like a couple brushes. You know, instead of drawing 100 flowers, do like 5 different flower brushes, and then you can quickly do this. Oh, I gotta switch this back to being scale proportionally. I'm just deleting this thing. I'm tired of it doing that. All right, so now I can like, now I can like do this, and then, and the thing about it is that now these are all the same flower, but because like my and they kind of look the same, but if I just come at different angles and stuff like that, I can kind of I mean, they are all the same, but they're slightly different just because when I'm doing my stroke's got a little bit of a curve to it or something like that, and I can make it feel a little different. It's not great with this the thing that I designed, but you can see if my thing was a little different. I thought it was pretty cool. See, by putting a little like S in it, it looks really different than these other ones. And if I come at it from different angles, I can like have it feel really fun and different. Okay, so I could really quickly fill up a page with this stuff without it without taking a ton of time. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, we learned how to make a brush really quickly, and it's definitely worth it for a lot of things. All right, remember, we're going to work smarter, not harder. And so the next thing I want to show you guys how to do is make a pattern. Now, we did make a pattern before with we made some halftone patterns. Okay, so you guys kind of know how to make a pattern. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by making a pattern with I'm going to make a couple. I'm going to make another flower. These are going to be kind of like a bigger flower. Okay, and so this is going to be a different flower. This is just going to be like a part of my. So I'm going to make this flower. And so I got this flower that's a little bit fancier. Maybe it's not too fancy, but it's a little bit big. I can, anyway, I want to have some variety in my thing. So this is a different type of flower. It'll give me that part, I think, even if it's not a cooler flower. So I'm going to make these 2 flowers here that are trying to make these flowers kind of similar but opposite. Okay, and then, okay, so I got these 2 flowers, and these are going to be the basis of my pattern. These 2 flowers, but they look very similar. I'm going to rotate this a little bit. I don't get too nerdy about this. So I got these 2 flowers, and these are going to be the basis of my pattern. Okay, so I can just drag that in here and create a pattern really quickly, or I can go up here to object and then pattern and then make. But I already dragged it in here. That's just the fast way of doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna get these off my artboard because I don't really need them anymore. And so now I'm going to double click on this, and it shows me my pattern. So now I can edit my pattern. It's not a very interesting pattern, as you can see. That's what it would look like. And I want to give it a little, I want to zhuzh it up here. All right, so first thing I want to do is I'm going to change the pattern a little bit by doing hex by column. Oh, I don't like the way that overlaps. Let's try this, brick by brick. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And I can give a, I'm going to give it a little bit of space in between it too. And just a little bit, like 0.2. Yeah, just a little space. And now I can start, this is where I'm going to use my brush, okay? So I'm going to go to brushes, get my brush. I'm gonna get this, and I don't want to be using any fill on my brush. So I just want to do this, and I'm going to put in some little flowers around it. And I'm going to do up some purple ones. And I want to do yellow one here, like a big one. That doesn't not delete. I don't like where they look. All right, there we go. And I'll do one purple one here. Okay, so now I've got a pattern. This pattern's more interesting. Look, I'm telling you, it's still pretty rubbish, but it's more interesting than it was before. But see how easy it was to fill this in? And I can kind of draw with it. And then even if later I want to, I can move these things around. I can just move this guy up here. Make it bigger. It's kind of this thing over here. And I can see how, so that's pretty fun. I mean, that's cool, you know. And then now I got a pattern. I'm just going to save that. Done. Okay. And so it wants me to expand those things, but I'm not really worried about it. What happened here? Okay, so here's my my pattern now. Now you can see, like, if you guys were developing a pattern for your box or whatever, that this is your die line, and you were like, okay, I want a whole side of my box to be pattern. Okay, this is how you do it. You'd make a pattern, and then let's say that this is the side of my box that has the pattern in it. Okay, it's gonna be like a tall side. But here's the thing, I'm looking at my pattern and I'm like, oh, it just doesn't look right the way it fits into this square. So that's okay, because I'm gonna go up to object. I don't have to redo the pattern. I'm gonna go to transform, scale. Let's try scale. And what I do is I'm gonna hit preview. And I just want to transform the pattern, not the object, okay? Just the pattern, right? And I uniformly want to make it 75% of what it was. A little bit more. So I just hitting Control D because it's going to transform again. And there we go. That seems about right to me. I don't like the way it's interacting with the sides though, see? So like, oh, I don't, is this, okay, actually this is probably the right way to cut it off, but maybe I don't like that way to cut it off. So I can do the same thing, object transform, but this time move, all right? And make sure that I'm only transforming the pattern, and I can change like what angle it is. I usually just do it at like 180. But you can move it this way or that. And so what I can do is I like to select this, and I can just use the nudge tool to go up and down to like change it by like a quarter of an or an eighth of an inch at a time. And I can just move it back and forth, see, like this, until I like, all right, like right. It was kind of right the first time, but it wouldn't have anything. It wouldn't be able to show you anything if it was right the first time. And then I can do it vertically too. So let's say that like that looks good at the top and the bottom. I can nudge that and adjust it. And that looks okay. Or maybe I'm like, I want to rotate it. So I can do the same thing, object, rotate. And again, just patterns. And I can do this, and you can see I can rotate a little bit. So you can see me rotating it. And that actually looks a little bit better. Before it was too like up and down. And this actually feels better to me. So you're not stuck with how you made the pattern. There's a lot of things you can do afterwards. I'm gonna hit OK. And now I got a nice pattern for the side of my box. And if I want to, now normally what you do is you would, you know, I want to make this a little bigger, I'd pull it, but look at that, it distorts it. Oh, that's no good, okay. So there's a way to get around that. You just do the direct selection tool, and you can just move these points. And if you move the points like that, so I'm just moving these 2 points, and that's making this box bigger without changing the scale of what's inside. And I can, you know, I can even add points. So I can add a point here, and then I can change the shape of it really easy and do it. It acts kind of like a mask. So if you're doing this and you're like, oh, the scale of my box changed, it doesn't matter, because you can just change how you can just change the shape that it's inside. So hopefully that's it. You guys find that interesting and fun. I mean, there's so many things you can do with patterns in here. I showed, and it's super easy to make patterns. I mean, this is one of those things that, like, you know, one, you should be making brushes all the time because it's fun. And when you're doing something like this, there's a lot of things you can do, and it cuts down on a lot of time. And also patterns are super fun to make, and it can do a lot of creative things with it, more creative than what I'm doing right here, you know. So you can make halftones with it, everything. Remember, we can bring this into Photoshop too. Okay, so speaking of Photoshop, I want to show you guys how to make patterns in Photoshop. And so I'm going to go over to Photoshop. And what I want to show you guys how to do is turn that off. And so we're going to make a pattern, actually. So I'm going to make a new file. And it doesn't have to be square, but I just find that it's easy because there's going to be some math involved. And if I make it something that's mathematically easy to change, then it just makes it easier. So I'm going to create a new square swatch here. This is going to be my pattern. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create solid color fill layer. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Solid color fill layer. I'm going to make it this pink. And go in there. And so I just remember, I just like to use solid color fill layers and stuff. I could just draw this normally. I could just draw this on an empty whatever. I just like using fill layers like this. Okay, so I'm gonna make another like kind of floral pattern like I did before. I'm not gonna make a special like brush. I'm going to just try and make a floral pattern. Now, since I'm drawing these, this is going to be a little bit more work. I'm going to try and do it really quickly. So I'm just drawing pretty flowers. Or I mean, maybe they're not pretty. I don't know. You guys be the judge. I'm just making these kind of like. The thing about making a pattern in I don't know what I'm doing. The thing about making a pattern in Photoshop is that you know, you can have a lot of texture to it, and you know, I could play with lots of ways of, you know. So okay, I got 3 different types of flowers here. I don't really like this one, but I'm gonna live with it. And so what I'm going to do is, so now I got a pattern, but how do I actually make a pattern? Well, one of the things about a pattern is it has to repeat, right? And so this is where the trick comes in on creating the pattern in Photoshop. So you go up here to filter, other, okay, and offset. Okay, what offset is going to do is, now you know how like in the old cartoons or like the old side scroller like computer games, if you go off one side of the screen, you come back around on the other side, you know, it's just like that. That's what offset does. So that's what's happening here. My so I'm going to put this back to 0. Okay, let's say 0 and 0, or I'll just hit 0. Okay, so here's my original. What I'm doing is I'm going to offset it. So I'm going to slowly move it. See, I'm slowly moving it, and it's coming back around on this side. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm just going to, the reason why I picked 600 is I know that 300 is going to be, so what was the edge here is now the edge here. Okay. And I actually want to do, sorry, filter of the offset. And I forgot to do the vertical. So actually this is going to be 0 and this is going to be 300 this time. All right. So now where my edges were over here are now right here. Okay. So if I yeah, let me show you something. So I'm going to create sort of, I'm trying to do this right in the middle. It's not quite right. But then if I go to offset, again, filter the offset, and I do it by 300 and 300, then you can see that the edges are kind of like right here. All right, undo that. Okay, so now, well, how is that useful? Well, now we can make a repeating pattern because all I got to do is this part that was the edge. Now all I got to do is put a new flower in here. And all I got to do really is and I'm going to put another one down here, like a little one. And I'm just going to kind of fill it in with stuff so that we can't see the edges. Okay, so now I think there needs something down here. I might want to do an offset again, filter of the offset. So this take me back to my original, and then I look at it, I'm like, well, there's like a hole here, so I'm gonna so now I've got this pattern. It's a pretty simple pattern because it's just one color. I can add a background color, so and maybe it's like a well, it seems like I'm getting kind of nerdy about this one. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe we'll just go with that. No, not happy. So someone actually was asking me about like, oh, how do you explore color and things like that? Well, I mean, I'm doing it, you know, like this is one of the ways I do it. I just like play around, and you can see when you use color fill layers, it's really easy to like nerd out and get stuff. And I could add another color in here, but I guess I'm just going to go with this. All right. So now I've got, I know it's repeating pattern because I've used the offset thing to prove that. All right. But now what I can do is I can, I want to make a selection here, select the whole thing, and then go up to edit, define pattern. Okay. And so here it's got define pattern, and I'm just going to call this like floral. I'm going to call it floral too, because my guess is I got other patterns that are floral, like in my pattern thing. Hit OK. All right. So now it saves it. And I can go up here into my other project, and I can create a pattern fill layer now. Okay. And actually, I'll start by just defining. So here's the side of my box. Again, in a hypothetical, like this is a project. I've got a box, and I'm going to create a pattern for it. The pattern's in the other one over there. And I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to go to, I'm going to create a pattern fill layer. And it's just going to use the one that I just made. But you can see here, I got a selection of patterns. I got a ton of stuff in here that I use. But here we got a pattern, you know, this pattern. And that's the one we just made. So I can scale it up. You know, before we talked about how we can scale it. So I can scale it, like, can make it bigger or smaller. I think I'll make it smaller though. There we go. Well, you can see how it looks when it's really small right there. You know, you can kind of see the pattern. Again, it's not great. It's kind of very linear the way it's lined up and everything. I didn't spend a lot of time making this pattern, but it's a pattern nonetheless. So I'm trying to find like a happy. I'm trying to see like 60. Let me see what like. Yeah, 60 looks pretty good. So here I've got this pattern, and so this is gonna be the pattern on my side thing here, and you can I can transform this so I can like move this around. You can see how I'm like this is looking kind of crazy because I got snap to on here. So snap to original. I can just change that by that. Let's see what else we got going on. Link with layer. Let's try that. Command T, change this, and then yeah. So that's, I just turn that off, and then like I can, you know, before if I wanted to change like where the pattern was, I had to move the interior thing, but now I can move the exterior thing and get it to where I want, and then move it back to where it's supposed to be. Oh wait, that's not right. Expand that. Oh no, snap to original. I think I just hit snap to original. Well, I'm doing something wrong, but I can't remember what it is, so I'm gonna have to get back to you guys on this. No, that's not right. I can't remember how I gotta move that. So that's I can't remember what I'm doing wrong here. But anyway, so that's how you make a pattern in Photoshop. But one of the things that is super useful about this too. So you can make an actual pattern, all right? But we can also make is a texture pattern, okay? So you're like, how do you get texture? Or like you have all these texture files. Well, I'm gonna show you like how to make like a texture file in a second, like so finding a texture. Okay, so I'm gonna delete these two. I can destroy these because we've already got our pattern made. But the thing that I want to show you guys, and I'm gonna just open this off screen. I'm gonna grab a thing from my assets folder where I've got some textures, and let me just find something. Okay, so I told you how you can like have textures and stuff like that. I'm trying to find something that feels kind of brushy, maybe. I guess maybe I'm getting a little too nerdy about this, but which one I actually want. I'm gonna grab this one. Okay, so I got this strange texture, and I want it to be kind of a repeating texture. Okay, I want it right now. I'm like, oh, this might be really useful. I might use this a lot. So what I'm going to do is let me rasterize this because I dropped it as a smart object. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it a little bit so that it's let me take some of the. This is just you don't need to do this part. This is just like I'm trying to make it a little bit more interesting. And I'm just going to desaturate it. No, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm just do it how it is. All right. And so I'm gonna do this thing, and right here. Okay, so now I'm going to use this to make. I'm going to select this whole thing, copy it, paste it. So now I just got a selection of this, and I'm going to do the offset. All right, so I'm going to do the offset thing again. Filter, other, offset. Okay, and on this one you can really see how it works, right? You can see the line, you can see the edge. Okay, and I'm just gonna hit OK. And I don't think this is gonna make a great texture because there's just too much difference between these. I should have picked something that was a little more less colorful, something like that. But I think I'm going to see seams. But this is what I want to do. We're going to go into like more of like what the clone stamp does and everything. But what I'm going to do is I want to soften this edge between these two. So I'm just going to like use the clone stamp to, I'm going to hold down Alt to sample here, and then use the clone stamp to kind of, actually maybe I should use a brush that's like, a brush tip that's like, got like a softer edge. So let's see this. Oh, no. Oh, it won't let me change the brush tip. I forgot to change that. Anyway, so I'm just going through here. I can make my edge softer, but I'm not going to go too much in there. And then I can use the, we're going to go more over what this stuff does. The spot healing brush. So where the edge is kind of weird, I'm going to soften that a little bit. And same thing here. I just want it to look more like natural, like a natural transition between these two areas. I really picked a horrible texture for this. I think I'm going to make it black and white because I think one of the things is the color is interfering with it here. I'm going to use the clone stamp tool again, and this is too light right there, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm trying to, I don't want to spend all day on this, you know, but what I'm trying to do is soften this edge so that we can't see it. And if you spend enough time, you'll make this part look seamless. Okay, so let me zoom out. And so it's not totally seamless, but I've got rid of most of that hard edge. Okay, and then I'm gonna go look, change view, and make sure that go to filter, offset again, and go back and make sure I didn't create any other extra seams. But it looks pretty good. So I'm hit OK. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to do Control A to select the whole thing. Go up here to Edit and Define Pattern. And this time it's going to be Texture. I'm going to do Texture 99 because I'm pretty sure I got tons of textures in here. Okay, now I go back to my other project. And where was that? Yeah, we got this teapot. And I want to add some texture to this teapot, right? So I'm going to create, you know, a selection, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to do a pattern again. This time it's going to be that texture pattern that we just made, and I'm going to make it just a little smaller so we can kind of see. You can see where it starts repeating. I didn't do a great job because we got some things here, so maybe I'll leave it at 100%. Where I can't see the differentiation so much. And let me see if I move it, I can move it around. And in case I get it right, about right. Okay, and now, well, that doesn't look great, but what I can do is just do like an overlay. And now I got this texture. And if it's a texture that I love, I can see how fast you can improve your process. If you have a bunch of textures, you can just start throwing over things, and like, you know, if you always use certain textures and things like that, and they're always going to be in your Photoshop, and you can just go through and grab some other things to play around with. And so you don't have to worry about bringing a whole full texture, and this scales as big as you want, so I mean you can work pretty big in there. And so you can just have these textures everywhere. They also can work for brushes too. So like, you know, you could search online for like, you know, that hatching, that cross hatching they do in like medieval prints and things like that. You could sample a little bit of that and create a repeating pattern out of that. and then, you know, you could just draw with that. You could make a, because you can see it's got a mask, so I can draw on the mask, and so, well, I'm actually just erasing here, but you can imagine if I was doing the opposite, I could go through and do that. Actually, with this, like, take that other brush I had, and I can go over it and kind of soften some of these areas. So, like, even though I can add even more, I'm just kind of erasing the texture a little bit. But, you know, some of these places where it repeated, I didn't really like it. It was obvious. Now look at that. I got some kind of other, like, dimension to it. And that's pretty fun, I guess, you know. I don't know, it just looks kind of cool. And that didn't take me that long, because I mean, I haven't really been talking that long. So there it is, you know. Any questions about any of that? Basically patterns, making patterns. I like, it's easy to make patterns in Illustrator, but I love making patterns in Photoshop even more, because I guess I'm a texture person, and you can add as much texture and fun things to it as you want, you know, and really do some cool things and kind of draw, you know, just do some funny, funky things. The key is just to that filter and the offset, just so that it becomes a repeating pattern. No textures or questions about that? Nothing. All right, that's good. All right, so the next thing that I want to show you guys is just where you can find. So somebody asked about someone asked that there's an ant on my desk. And someone asked about brushes. Okay, and so if you open your brushes palette and you go up here, you've got a couple things over here underneath this, and one of them is get more brushes. Okay, and so if you like click on that, I'm going to bring this and you will, I'm going to drag this down onto the screen, but it'll take you to this Kyle's get more brushes. You know, I'm not signed in, but if you were signed in, I was signed into Adobe, it would have all these brushes and stuff that you can download, and you can download them right to you, and it'll import them automatically. But what we can also do is it'll show you import brushes. So if you import brushes, you can go, and maybe you guys can see the file. This is some brushes that I already have. There's some custom brushes that I've made, and some other brush libraries. But you can just import them from anywhere. I've got, let's see if I go to assets, and I got some brushes in here. So I got tons of brushes that I've made or I've gotten from other people, and I can, I don't want to import them right now, because what they're going to do is they're going to add to the brushes. And I got my brush palette all like organized, which takes me a long time. But you can, some people make brushes and they share them, or you can buy them, all kinds of different stuff. And you just got to go to where you've unloaded those, unpack them, and then you open them, and then you'll get a new folder with the new brushes in there. Okay. Like here, I got some copier ones. So I got some copier brushes, and like, let's see what this copier brush does. Let's see. I want to do be off of that. So it's just, yeah, it's kind of like a texture brush. Oh, this is one I made, I think. No, it's not. It looks like one I made because I can see the pattern. I can see the repeating pattern. And this looks like my amateur attempt to do it, but it looks like Kyle's copier is just as bad as mine. So I feel better. But you can see the banding from where the pattern repeats. Because he set this up the same way I was showing you guys how to do the offset, how it just doesn't repeat as well. But so yeah, you can, but maybe by going over it, I'm gonna like get rid of some of that banding. I don't know, with some other stuff. But that's a good way to add texture too. But that's how you get brushes, you know. And brushes aren't that hard to make either. And in fact, a lot of custom brushes. There's some custom brushes. One of them, let's get perspective right now. Yeah, might as well, because I'm talking about brushes. One of the one thing that I've used a lot is this. I use these sometimes for perspective drawing. So you guys know that, like, you know, perspective drawing, you create a grid. I'm going to create a grid. So you create a grid. Oh, what a different brush. So you can create a grid. You know, you got a horizon line, and then you got a vanishing point, and then you actually use ruler or something like that, and you create like things going to the vanishing point, like this, and then, you know, you've got other lines that go. So this is my main horizon line, and these are other lines. So if I was going to draw something, and then I got the same thing going down here. Okay, so if I was going to draw like a cube, I would go like this, and oh. So now I've got this in perspective cube. That's basically perspective drawing. Here, it's a transparent cube, so we can see the back of it as well. It's not a cube, it's more of some other kind of thing. But here I've drawn a cube, a cubish thing, okay? And it's in perspective with this horizon line. I did this grid really fast, but that's the kind of the pain in the butt part, okay? The easy way to do it is to get one of these perspective brushes. And so 2-point perspective. So I got this 2-point perspective brush. Let's see. You can't, I gotta make it a little brighter so you guys can see it. So here's the 2-point perspective brush. It's kind of built this grid already for me. So I just hit the brush right there, and then switch back to something I can draw with. And now if I want to make my grid, I make my thing, I'm gonna make my cube. So same idea as before. Okay, so now I've got this. Now the same thing, except I didn't have to do any of the setup. And I'll link these on the. Do I have them already? Now, I'll see if I can find where I've got these. And if I don't, I'll just upload them so that you guys can have them. But there's that's a 2-point perspective, and there's so that's 2-point perspective. And if you've got, but what I find useful to do is get there's a 1-point perspective one. This. Did I put it someplace? Oh, it's up here. I use it so much, I put it up here. So with this, I'm going to do 1-point perspective. Okay, so here's 1-point perspective. Okay, and what I do is I just move it over here, and then I'm going to copy this whole thing, and what I'm going to create is actually what I want to do is this. So this gives me more flexibility on where my vanishing points are. I'm going to just transform this a little bit so that I stretch it. Okay. And then I'm going to copy it and drag it and do it like that. And now I've got another 2-point perspective, but I have more control over where the vanishing points are. They should actually probably be more further off of the thing. I mean, I could teach a whole like class, a semester class on just on perspective. So it's kind of a, you know, it's something that's fun, but I find that, you know, you got to kind of understand about how perspective works. But this is good for, you know, drawing stuff. So again, I'm going to make a box again. This one could be a tall one. Ooh. So I'm just you know, kind of doing the lines here. Just follow that line that intersects down there. And do this one behind. So go this way. Because it's a transparent box. And there you go. So now I got my perspective thing. If you're into that kind of stuff, you know, there's also an isometric. I like to do there's an isometric brush, but this is really the only one I use. And I'll upload that so you guys can, or put a link to where you can get them if you're interested. So that's a perspective and using brushes. But brushes can do a lot of things. I'll show you guys how to make brushes and stuff like that. But even with all these Kyle's brushes, and there's a lot, like you know, I don't even have all of them installed. There's a ton in here. Even within like the mega pack, there's about any tool you can use, it's in there, and that's provided just for having Adobe. Excuse me. And then but if you've got a brush that you like, most of these I've modified a little bit. You can double click on them, or you can add plus. Oh, it's brush presets. I don't know what it is. Brushes, brush settings. That's what I want to open up. So here's brush settings. And brush settings allows you to modify brushes or create a new brush. So you can just create a new brush. Yeah, okay. And there's a bunch of things you can change on it. I want to just quickly show you guys. One of the things that's most useful is changing the angle of attack here on the brush. So like this isn't a great shape brush to show you on, but I'll show you on like maybe this one. No, this one. Okay. So by changing this, I'm changing like the thickness of it, how it kind of attacks, and you can rotate that around. Sometimes if you've got brushes that are like this, that you can change. Excuse me, my allergies acting up. You got one that's got like that you're using more of a stamp, you know, because sometimes you create a brush, because you can create a brush out of a pattern. You can use it like a stamp or something like that. Changing the way it, let's just try this one. So if I'm just using it as a stamp, and then I can rotate it, and so rotate it again this way, and then you can see like if I keep doing that, I'm overlapping. Oh, it's got jitter on it. It's got pressure jitter on it anyway, so that's why it's not being perfect. But if you've got one, you can change it around like that, and that can, you know, if it's a big one, you can move it around. I feel like this is not being helpful, but that's a very useful thing in here. Size, you can make it bigger or smaller really quick. But most of these things you can get in here. Size jitter, you can change how this works. So size jitter means like how, you know what, I'm going to do a whole day where I'm going to explain this. I'm not going to get into this right now. We're going to make our own custom brush another day. Like I said, trying to fill in the last few minutes because I'm not sure what to show you guys. Do you guys have anything that you're curious about, something you've been working on you'd like to know about? No?
Do you mean like in relation to this, or just like any
Anything.
skill set?
Got some time. We got like 20 minutes, so like I thought, you know, I'd just open it up. Or we can just end early.
Um, I mean, I'm curious about Cinema 4D and like how
Cinema 4D.
3D modeling works.
Yeah.
I don't
Um,
know if that's enough time to,
not today. I could get you it open and
yeah.
show you guys the first few things, but like since there's interest in that, I'll say that closer to the end of class, well, I'll take some time to open that up and show you. Okay. It's not that hard. Like I'm no expert in it, but I've done a few projects in it and had some really good results. Um, the thing is that there's 3D stuff in Photoshop, but the problem is they've made it so that it doesn't work in After Effects. So I don't see the point in creating anything 3D in Photoshop anymore if it doesn't play well with After Effects. Now they may have fixed that. Sometimes I say things because I just gave up using Photoshop because it didn't play well with After Effects, which doesn't make any sense to me, but that's the way it was. But they may have fixed that because that was like a few years ago, the last time I tried. So I could be totally wrong about that, but it is something that will. Oh my God, my allergies, something just bloomed or something outside. Um, the I never had allergies till I moved to Portland. My entire life, I moved to Portland. All of a sudden, it's like 3 or 4 times a year I get like incredible, and I got deviated septum, and like when I was in the Marines, I got injured and broke this orbital. It's all mashed up inside there. So I get sinusitis like really easy from allergies. I don't know why I live here because it's probably killing me, but I love it anyway. Uh, anyway, back to this. So yeah, I can show you guys how to do that. But there are tools in in Photoshop as well. It just takes longer to render in Photoshop for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it can be pretty fun. Yeah, well, let's look at Cinema 4D later once I get through some other stuff. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop and should have stopped recording too. Okay.